It's this kind of stuff that you subscribe to Naptown Tuner for. You've got a verified fix. You've got a huge discovery. You've got an oil pressure issue resolved. I figured it out. It also pertains to an engine that sounds loud. It's got clatter to it. This right here is a vehicle that has nearly 240,000 miles on it. And it seemed like things were going downhill pretty fast. Well, I don't necessarily have time to tear down everything and do complete repetitive things. I want to try to give you new and interesting things every time, at least if it's just a tidbit or something. But what we have here is the engine that came out of it. The pistons say 2011. The peak inside the cylinders, 240,000 miles. It looks absolutely beautiful. The pistons look absolutely beautiful. You know, I tried to wipe this one off a little bit just because you can see the date. That last digit there is the year. It's a 2011 piston. We can even see the part number here. These are AM pistons. So those are not even the updated, 23 millimeter rod deals. Those are the old school style, but the oil consumption was perfect on this one. What I found was an oil pressure issue. Now this one had a timing chain tensioner and timing chain update, but the oil pump chain was not updated, which I've never seen an issue with this yet, but the timing chain for the balance shafts was not replaced. And I just recently made a video on replacing this chain. This is a perfect example of a chain that's all the way extended and past its extension. This is the plunger right here. This is actually fed with oil pressure. So look at how much slack is in that tensioner. Now oil pressure comes out through the end of that plunger, and if this has so much slack, all the oil pressure is just going to be lost right there out of that tensioner and just splash out. Let me give you a better representation. You see this tensioner, this plunger tensioner right here? I'm holding one in my hand. That's what tensions the balance shaft assembly. You see the hole? Right? That's where the oil pressure is fed through. Now, I also had a guide laying over here. This tensioner pushes on the back side there. Do you see that hole right there? That's where oil is also fed through that tensioner, through the guide rail, and then it lubricates the chain. Now, this thing has not been operating properly for quite some time with this much stretch. Let's take a look. Last time I had this is a brake pad gauge, just to see the brake pad wear. These are in millimeters. So this plunger on this tensioner, it's 100% fully extended, more than fully extended. It's more than 12 millimeters. This plunger right here is about 14 millimeters. And with the looseness in this chain, with how much slack I have in the chain, it's 15 millimeters. So I just measured an engine for reference yesterday. I didn't even know I was gonna have an engine with a verified oil pressure / loud issue. This is another one of those issues where 100% the balance shaft assembly completely screwed up and caused a loud engine with an oil pressure light, a sporadic oil pressure light. And that could lead to more. But, before I just tackled this just by throwing an oil pump in it real quick. That's the safest thing, quickest thing. I had one on hand. See, I don't have time to sit here and lay out exactly what shops should do. Shops are gonna fix things differently than Naptown Tuner and Naptown Tuner's home garage. All right. A lot of that is just because I'm making videos. I'm trying to put out every single video, and I'm trying to do things that the everyday mechanic will be able to do and figure out. So right here, I'm bringing you a verified fix. Everybody needs to replace probably all 3 timing chains every single time they get inside here. Not any more replacing just the main timing chain, no more. Every single car gets all 3 chains. At least the balance shaft chain and the main timing chain for the crankshaft camshaft. I have not ever seen yet the oil pump chain cause an issue, but that might be the next thing. So one more thing. So I don't know if I finished that thought. The vehicle I had yesterday, when I put a chain on it, it was less than 100,000 miles, the engine, and it had 10 millimeter of plunger. And whenever I put on the tensioner, and whenever I put a new chain on it, it had 5 millimeter. So in less than 100,000 miles, it stretched 5 millimeters on the chain. Now, the plunger extends 14 millimeters. And in this case, it's an extra millimeter from stretch, it's 15 millimeters. So I hope that's helped someone out. Go ahead and hit the like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more verified fixes. This is my buddy's vehicle. I had an avalanche of different things I did to it all at once within the past 2 weeks. Each thing was needed and different, and there was a few things that I was just doing for YouTube. Like, I didn't necessarily have to do the oil pan, oil pump right away. I could have just done a complete teardown, but also it's not my vehicle, so I was trying to skimp by, trying to get the thing going. But what I really needed to do was show you what's going on with the complete teardown, and this still isn't necessarily a complete teardown. It might not need a complete teardown, but I gotta figure out, you know, how much I'm gonna do to it. But this is the verified fix if I continue. I'll pin the video in the comments, and one more thing about that video that I'm gonna pin in the comments, you know, if you wanna hear what the engine sounded like, I compare it to my other vehicle that's running perfect, so you can hear what an engine clatter sounds like, and that is absolutely from this, because I've already looked at the cylinder head, I've already looked at the bottom end, I've already looked for, I mean, I haven't taken the actual bearings apart on this one yet, but I've already looked for any metallic flake in the oil pan. Everything was fine. This is what the clatter was from, and I will, you know, put out another video when this one's running perfect, and I'll explain exactly what I did. I might videotape some of it and show some putting it together, I don't know. But the other thing that I wanted to mention about that, the video that I'm gonna pin in the comments, is it had a weird sporadic stalling issue, and whenever I shipped it, the customer experienced that one more time, and it was not the high pressure fuel pump. So what I neglected to mention in that video, and what I think it probably is, because it did not come with a fault, and it was a rare stalling issue, I think it's the high pressure fuel pump sensor in the fuel rail. I have had one of those, extremely rare. I mentioned the fuel pump control module and the low pressure fuel pump, but I did not mention the fuel pressure sensor. If the fuel pressure sensor is slightly out of spec, but it's not setting a fault, that's the next thing I would go to in a situation like this, in Naptown Tuner garage style repair. I've got an extra one, I would throw it in. That's faster than me doing anything else. But for all I know, it's some weird feedback with the low oil pressure. I don't know. This needs fixed first, but it's gonna get a fuel pressure sensor as well. What I'm gonna do though is I'm gonna take that fuel pressure sensor that was in this intake manifold, and I'm gonna put it in one of my own cars, and I'm gonna verify that fix for you. So stay tuned, because I'm doing lots of legwork for you guys. I had mentioned in my balance shaft chain install video that I've reused these guides. Now, whenever the chains are really bad stretched like this, then it's gonna wear prematurely in a wrong spot. And if you got a flat spot or something, if the rest of the guide looks like this, you're probably fine. But if you got a weird wear spot, something like that, it needs replaced. Also, I'll show you the wear on the camshafts and the cylinder head, because there was some slight score. With the amount of miles on this one, see, I'm not convinced that this one was running synthetic its whole life. Usually you don't see the staining. It doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of sediment or anything, which would be congruent with running conventional oil, but there is some scoring in the journals. If I can zoom there, see the scoring there, and then it's all the way across. There's some, you can get a zoom there, see some scoring, and usually you can run your nail across it and feel it. It's getting better and better as we go forward. but that one's pretty bad as well, really. Usually it's the worst in the back, but for some reason the exhaust side is usually always perfect. Ever so rarely do I ever see any scoring on the exhaust side. Most of the time it's fine. Now, the camshafts, same deal. We've got, it's not one to zoom, scoring all the way across. So this would not be a situation that I would want to just throw it back together. Especially that snout, you can run your fingernail across it and you can just hear it. The exhaust camshaft, it might look like there might be a little bit of scoring there, but that's smooth. I mean, ever so little bit of scoring on the snout, but the rest of it is smooth. And really, that's probably to be expected for an engine with about 240,000 miles, but preferably I would replace that intake camshaft. It could probably be polished out at the machine shop, and the cylinder head could probably be polished out as well, but preferably, you know, like I say, everyone would like brand new stuff if they could get it. In this particular case, I'm probably going to retire that intake cam, and for a while I'm going to retire this one, the cylinder head. We'll see my cylinder head guy's opinion on the scoring. Let me get your opinion. What would you do? But really, I'll show you in a video. You can clean up some of that scoring pretty good, and then the oil just fits in the lines of the scoring, so it's really not as bad as what you think. The worst part is putting a dirty, scored up camshaft back in these journals after you clean them up, and then you're gonna get grooves right back in it. So that's the worst part, is not doing anything with your camshafts.